Tyler Trumpetter, so excited to have you here today. You are our very first guest on the Best of White Rock. And so we did a little bit of a pre-interview call for this, and you've got some really amazing things that I'm looking forward for you to tell the people about. But to get started, I'm kind of hoping you'll just tell people about who you are, what you do, who you're with, and all that sort of stuff.
Sure. Local mortgage broker, Dominion Lending Centers broker. Um, I grew up in South Surrey, so I'm a local. I think my family moved here. I might have been 2 years old in Ocean Park area. Moved away, came back, started a family, and yeah, I'm sort of South Surrey, White Rock through and through.
Yeah, well, for many people that maybe either don't know you or don't know me or don't know us combined, we actually were like basically neighbors. That's right, or close enough anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was a little bit older than you at the time, but when you're young, those years seem to make a big difference there. But when you get a little bit older, they said they certainly don't quite as much anymore.
That's right. That's right.
And so you're in the mortgage business.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell us about your company, how long you've been in the business, what's going on with that.
Sure. I mean, I've been in the mortgage business. This is year 15 for me. So I started my career working at the bank, and even before that, I would say, I kind of grew up around mortgages. My dad's a mortgage broker. He's still in the business as well.
Okay.
So I kind of always have my lens on brokering, just because I saw, the lifestyle he had, and just I took a keen interest into, what he was doing for a living, right? And so I just sort of always knew. I went to university. It was always in the back of my mind, I'm probably going to get into this mortgage thing. And I thought what I would do is I'd go, get a job at the bank and learn everything I need to know about mortgages in a year. That was what I thought.
Yeah.
And ended up having like a pretty great run, a good career, moved up fairly quickly, got more and more responsibility, and, just worked with really good people. And then, there just came a time where I really wanted to do it for myself and work with the clients directly. And so I would say 8 years ago, I took the leap and just went out on my own. Much like real estate, there's different, brokerage houses you can hang your license with. I mean,
Right.
I've been under the Dominion Lending Centers umbrella. They've got a few different brands. They're probably the most recognizable name in the mortgage business. And so,
Yeah, they're pretty big.
yeah, so I've been there my entire career. Um, yeah, it's been a good run.
Well, you had something you had told me when we did our pre-interview that I thought was really interesting because for I think it was about 6 years or so you were with Homelight.
Home Trust.
Home Trust.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Yeah,
Yeah.
Home Trust. Yeah.
So Home Trust was the bank, right? And that was that they're kind of what we consider your alternative lending space, right? So they're the bank we take clients to, one of the major banks, and what we call your more AAA lenders, which is a tight lending box that's only getting smaller, as you probably know as well.
Yeah.
And so it's more of the alternative lending space. So that's where I really cut my teeth and helping doing a lot of outside the box lending, right? Working with a lot of self-employed borrowers, people with new credit, bad credit, or even no credit. Really sort of the only real, I would say, creative space that's happening in the mortgage business is the alternative lending channel, which has grown significantly, right? So, I like I say, I cut my teeth in all the difficult files and all the more challenging, more creative files, which it gave me a very good breadth of knowledge to eventually go into this side of the business where I'm dealing with the clients directly, because um, a lot of the time I spent at the bank towards the end of my career was just going to local mortgage broker offices in and around South Surrey, all the way, all throughout the Lower Mainland, and meeting with brokers and actually teaching them and training them on how to do these difficult files where, if your big bank says no, like what happens next? These people need this home, need this refinance. So it was just a really good place to start my career, I would say, because again, I learned how to do everything when the banks say no, right? So
Well, that's what actually got me so interested in that, to be honest, because you've seen the deals that the banks can't do,
yeah,
and even having whether we want to call it a red flag, that term obviously gets used a lot in our businesses, but like when you see a deal that you're like, wow, this is going to be quite challenging and whatnot. Obviously, if you have the avenues to take them through to get the best rates and the best products for them and whatnot, you would go that route. But sometimes it's maybe the better thing for them to say, here is an alternate option. There is a path forward because you have a difficult file for, reasons X, Y, Z. And just as well, I mean, it's been incredibly more difficult and become incredibly more difficult to get people financing.
yeah, and it's only getting harder, right? Like I repeat myself essentially for a living, and basically what I tell everybody when they call me and they want to get started on pre-approval, kind of half-heartedly, I always say, "Well, I'm gonna ask for everything except for a blood sample and your age. And your first-born child is collateral," and, like, we joke, but, in it the biggest piece is just there's just so much fraud out there, right? Like, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's just always fraud is always developing, and because of that, banks are always getting hammered by regulators, and because of that, they need to ask for more and need to do more due diligence, and they put the onus on the brokers, and if you wanna work with us, we're gonna need all of this, right? It wasn't too long ago where if someone came to me and they were employed, just had a job, it was the bank asked for, "Oh, we need a job letter or a notice of assessment or your T4 or pay stub," or one of those 4 things. Now it's all 4 or you're not getting anything in many cases, right? So, yes, it's always changing, and, um, they're definitely always asking for more. As long as you're staying on top of all those changes, you can just really kind of, show your knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious because I have a story. I feel like it might be somewhat similar to yours, but I'm curious what your allure was to the mortgage industry. So you grew up in a family where your father was a mortgage broker, still is.
Yeah.
What was it that you saw that
Right.
interested you and sparked you into getting into that?
I'd say the big moment was, we were on a family ski trip, and, we were sitting on a chairlift, and my dad kept answering. This was like BlackBerry days, and, he was saying things like, "Oh, it's approved, funded," and, like, he kept being on his phone on his chairlift, and I just said, "Dad, what the hell are you doing?" And he said, "I just paid for this whole ski trip," and I was like, "What?" And then and then at that point, I was like, what do you do again? Like, maybe I'm gonna start paying attention." And that was the big allure to me. And this was like early day. I mean, now everybody's remote working, but 20 years ago, that was kind of pretty unheard of, right? And to me, I was like, so you can work and be away from your office and your home, and he said yes, and it just to me it just kind of clicked. I was like, that's so cool. I like I really like to travel and enjoy traveling, and I just thought, wow, this is a business that you can run and job you can do, and you don't need to be in an office at all times. Like I just really enjoyed that. I mean, the irony is now I basically live at my office, right? I'm in the office all the time, but that was sort of the moment where I was like, okay, this is something I'm interested in.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that because your work now kind of follows you home, and even where we are now compared to when your dad answered that phone call on the chairlift, like, you can sign documents with people in other countries that, you don't even have to be in front of them anymore, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And especially since COVID and, that really took, I might meet clients face to face, like less now than ever before, right? Whereas Zoom and Microsoft Teams, like I always give my clients the option, like you can come into my office and we can do this, or we can do everything from the couch. The choice is yours. And like 99% of people say, oh, okay, well, if my bank says I got to go and sit down and talk to them, bring all this paperwork, and say, when we don't need to, like, we have all this technology available to us. So, and especially, like I say, since COVID, it's really gone that direction. And, real estate, you're there with the people all the time. Mortgage side, you can really get away with, and everyone's really happy to communicate just through these different forms of technology now.
Yeah. So you made a point there, and I was curious as well. Like, what is your favorite part about doing this? What's the most rewarding piece of your job when you get to help people get a hold?
I mean, I certainly enjoy talking to, first time buyers after they've, the day, like usually when an accepted offer happens, it's gonna be in the evening, and then I get sent the contract with someone like yourself, and then I call them in the morning.
Aren't they the best?
They're so happy and appreciative. Yeah, like, "Yeah, I'm slapped." This is the first thing I ask, like, "How did everybody sleep last night?" And they're like, "Oh, not a wink," or "How the accident?" Some people are like a rock. They love this place, right?
Right.
So it's fun to kinda have those conversations and just try and, like, take the stress, at least from the financing, out of their lives, and just kinda give them that certainty, like, "Look, this is why we did the pre-approval. This is why we went through this process, like, I'm gonna take this from here, and you're gonna get your home." So, yeah, that's a very enjoyable part of business.
Do you have any stories of where you had a really challenging file, or there was a really big obstacle that maybe looked like it was going to be really difficult to overcome? Do you have any stories like that that you're proud of, or
Yeah, I mean, I could share, like, I mean, there's most of what I do is what we would consider like AAA business, right? Major bank lending, fast rates, all that. That's, probably 9% of my business. And that's all just excellent service, right? And then that's most of the stuff goes really smoothly. If I think about a major win, it was sort of beginning of last year. I had a family call me and they were trying to close I'll try and keep this short, on a pre-sale townhouse that they wrote a contract on a few years ago.
I was so scared because I think I know where this is going already.
Yeah. Like there's, I like having dug into the whole file and the situation, like it was just really poor communication from the bank to the client, 'cause we were dealing with their home bank. And they basically called me 5 days from completion. Oh, and did not have sufficient financing, and were being pushed in this direction of maybe, very financially crippling private financing. And within the first phone call, within the first, whatever, 20 minutes, I managed to identify an opportunity and got them to close with a major bank at best rates. So from that first call, within 24 hours, I had an approval. And then within 48 hours, it was at the lawyers and they were able to close on time. And then you had there's a $90,000 deposit on the line, and the developer wasn't willing to budge, move a closing day, do anything. Wow. Yeah, it was a very stressful time for the clients, and I managed to save it for them. And I just remember talking to the mom; she was crying on the phone, and it was, yeah, that was a good one.
That's amazing. So what would you say if I gathered your last 40 clients as an example, or maybe, if you do Google reviews or whatever, what would you say is a consistency that you've noticed when people have the opportunity to work with you? What do they say about you?
I'm gonna say depth of knowledge, right? Like I'm definitely not. I could work on my marketing abilities, right? I have social media. I'm just completely inactive. My website is, I would say, rudimentary or very basic. It's something I'd like to work on, but really what I've kind of built my business on, and focused a lot of my, especially early days, energy on, was just like understanding bank and lender policies and guidelines. And so when someone calls me, like there's not too many questions I don't have an answer for, or can't explain everything in complete detail, from front to back, just because of my previous banking experience and just doing it for as long as I have. Yeah, so I would say depth of knowledge.
Well, that's a great answer, and this is my lens on why I think that's a great answer. Is you've heard of different companies where you don't necessarily see them advertising whatever on TV, in the newspaper, or on the radio, whatever means they want to advertise, and you know about them because of word of mouth, and they're successful because of word of mouth, and the only reason they're getting that word of mouth is because 'cause they're delivering something to the consumer that the consumer they deem it's worth talking about,
Yeah.
right? And I know you were mentioning that a lot of your business is, like, really highly driven by repeat referral, and, a lot of you built tons of trust with all the people you've been able to help over the years. 15 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 15 years. So you built tons of trust with these people, and they're your greatest advocates. This was kinda what you'd alluded to.
100%. Yeah. Like I'm almost like, it's funny. I'm now starting to get calls from people that find me on Google, and I got to stop sounding so surprised on the, sorry, how'd you get my information? Yeah, your Google reviews. You got great Google reviews. So yeah, it's like a referral is really just a transfer of trust, right? So, I think you asked me like what's a rewarding part of the business. That's definitely one of them, right? Because it's like somebody's brother, sister, uncle, whatever, coworker. So they're putting their reputation on the line as well, right? And if maybe pass their name along, and if I blow the whole thing up, do a terrible job, they're going to blame their friend. At the very least, it's going to blow back slightly on them. So, my whole business, everything, um, especially early days, was a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah, well, I mean, and isn't that the best form of marketing you could get? 100% got a compliment, right? That
Yeah.
you can even have that for people. So it's a big deal when someone, especially with like things like finances, people put a lot on the line. They put their reputation on the line to recommend you,
Yeah.
and you're not necessarily their family or their friend. You're just a service provider that did an incredible job for them. So they're really like, that's a pretty big compliment to not only be completely or highly driven, anyways, by repeat referral, but to have that level of advocacy with your clients, like that's something to definitely celebrate. So I hope anyways that makes you feel good at getting the
Yeah. That remind me of ego stroke. Yeah. Oh, there you go. What you got? What you got? What's affirmation, right? Like, that's a pretty big pillar in life, right? And it's true. Like, I'd be lying if I didn't say it felt good to see someone leave me a 5-star review and say something amazing. Like, it gives you a little bit of juice, right?
For sure, yeah, and I think as business professionals and entrepreneurs, and like, I'm sure your business is a lonely business, right? Like, you interact with the clients that you're helping on a daily basis, but other than that, it's, you're not really interacting with a lot of people, and I think we get hard on ourselves as business professionals that we could be doing more, and, you commented on your marketing and whatnot, but if you're delivering a service to these people that is worth talking about, oh my gosh, like, who cares about, paying for ads and all that sort of thing? I mean, that's the way to go, right? 100%. I couldn't agree more. What sort of stuff keeps you up at night, in terms of your business? Like, what challenges do you feel that you run into more often than not?
I mean, early days, there was definitely a lot of sleepless nights. I think just with experience over time, you kind of, you start to see more and go through different scenarios that you can kind of, um, weather any sort of mental storms you're going through.
Sure.
Uh, I'm trying to think like, I think because I've been doing it so long and I really do like a full pre-approval and review there's not a ton like,
Well, that's a good answer too. Like, we in our business outside of where we're hosting this, when we work with all different sorts of lenders, right? And I feel oftentimes when people go directly to a bank, like they walk into a brick and mortar, I'm a 50-50 chance of whether that deal's even gonna get done.
right.
Right? Whether they're gonna get their financing because of the way that they're onboarded. And, these people have someone coming in 30 minutes later. I gotta get you in and out of my office in 30 minutes. I'm not gonna do the proper pre-qualifications and pre-approvals to get you where you need to be. Then, go out shopping, go waste everybody's time, and we'll really figure out if you can afford what you need when you come back.
Right.
Right? And that's just the backwards way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I also think just like the nature of being self-employed too, right? Like as long as I've been doing this, you have a year, it's like, wow, there's no way this year's going to be as good as last year. Like there's always like, and there's different pressures and stress points coming in that my industry is facing, just from AI and technology, all these different technologies that are coming in. Are they going to replace us? Are they not going to replace us? So there's general concerns and worries that always sort of, creep into your mind as an entrepreneur, I would say.
So you're just having sleepless nights now instead of work related. You're having sleepless nights because you have kids at home. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. The children take up a lot more mental bandwidth. Negative work thoughts now. I mean, I've never found so many new ways to scare myself since I've had kids, right? So totally get
Yeah. Well, what an interesting. I always thought when I had kids too, and I wonder if you're the same. Like, once I had them, I had to learn how to be better and more effective with my time, because now you've got this competing interest where you want to service your clients and make sure that you have everything that you need, but you've got this young family tugging you back, wanting to spend time with you as well. How have you found dealing with that?
I guess like just hearing you explain that, I completely agree. But I think something I just realized is, I was, that guy that always brought work home with him, right? Like constantly thinking about deals, subject removals, like upcoming completions, tight deadlines, all that kind of. It's a high pressure business, and so there's been many times my wife would be like, you're not here right now. You're thinking about you. So I'd like to. I think maybe the positive spin on all that is like once my kids are in the picture now, especially now my daughter's out running around communicating, our son's a pro, and it's like I don't even. I'm just with them. Almost maybe it's a little bit. I'm a little more present now. Sure, versus like many nights and evenings just like constantly thinking about work and
Yeah, well, good for you. I mean, and, as you know, it's important, and it is a struggle. It's difficult being an entrepreneur and a father, and I never understood it until I had kids myself. Wondered why everybody wasn't working 12-hour days and whatnot. And
yeah.
you need to find that balance there, and it's better for your clients too, right? Like they expect the most of you, and they deserve to get it. So that means that you're well rested and they have your full attention and whatnot. And that sometimes that means setting boundaries, and that's okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that my biggest fear, I think early days was, if I didn't answer the phone at, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I would lose that client. And, especially since I have children, I explained to them, okay, I can't chat tonight. I got this with my kids or whatever. Like I've just realized, people are so, respectful, at least a lot of my clients like, oh, okay, yeah. And a lot of them are parents too. And it's it's almost held my relationship with my client base and setting boundaries. But before, especially early, you're just doing everything you can to make it. Like there were no boundaries. You call me whenever you want. I'm here. Like you're just trying to make it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Now, you have something that I think is so cool, and I'm excited for you to kind of fill, the people watching this in on, is your foundation. And you're the best one to explain it, so I'm gonna let you open the floor here. Sure. What would you like people to know about your foundation?
I mean, it was something my family created out of a tragic loss. My brother, actually, who you graduated with, played rugby with, he passed away, 11 years ago now. And out of that, it was really spearheaded by my mom that they started this foundation called Live Like Ben Foundation. And it's less active now. We kind of achieved a lot of major goals early. Essentially, what we did, went to Thailand where my brother spent a lot of time, traveling and working, and built a school. And so it was basically entirely grassroots fundraising, events, concerts, that kind of thing. And ended up, uh, raising quite a big amount of money enough to at least go over there and rebuild this entire school for this little village up in a obscure mountain range up in Thailand. And yeah, it was a heck of achievement. And
That's amazing.
yeah, it was like I say, out of a very, life-changing tragedy for my family, we ended up hopefully, helping out some kids somewhere else in the world.
Well, what an incredible legacy for your brother, yeah, and for your family, to be honest, and to be able to pass that on and help these other kids get a start that they, I guess, otherwise wouldn't have been able to get.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Well, congratulations on that. That is very, very cool. And a lot of people, I think, they have the intent of doing amazing things like that, but the fact that you guys actually took action and did it, and then had a result out of it, that's unbelievable. So
Well, I mean, this is like best of White Rock, right? Like, so a lot of the money raised were from people that were from, because my brother obviously was from this area too, right? I have a lot of his friends and people he grew up around with. That's where the vast majority of the donations came from. So, um, yeah, it's like almost like a little piece of White Rock out in, like I say, Northern Thailand.
that's awesome, and you got to show that red, bright and proud is right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a tribute to your brother, and I've got one at home as well. So as we were joking off camera, though, I think my son might have stolen out of my air hiding barks branch. Oh, I used to keep my secret stuff in there. Ricky's found it, so it's not
Right. Well, we got more.
Yeah, well, I'll have to hang out for a new one. I think mine's probably faded as well. There's one thing I wanted to leave the people watching this with, unless you've got anything else you'd like to share, but the mortgage industry is complicated. It's a stressful environment for people to navigate, only because it's not something they do on on a frequent basis. It's that once every 5 years when a renewal comes up, maybe, or they're buying their first home, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
If you could grab people by the shoulders, square them up to you, and say, "If I could make sure for you to be successful that you just understood this one thing or knew this one thing,"
Yeah.
what would that be?
I would I would definitely say that, the broker works for you, right? The bank's number one responsibility is to the shareholders, where, there's never a formal contract in place between me and my client, but they hire me, right? I take direction from them in a lot of cases, and I'm here to help them. There's a lot of great bank employees and bank mortgage sales force individuals out there, but that's what they are, right? It's a sales agent for the bank.
Right.
The biggest, I would say, point of concern or really fear for Canadian homeowners and people with mortgages right now is just their mortgage renewal coming up.
Right.
And the reality is, maybe you did work with a bank directly, but that branch manager or that mortgage specialist, they don't handle renewals, right? They're just there to acquire new business. They're going to kick you to the renewals department, right? And that's a separate department, quite often, ran out east or wherever it is. And that agent's got a screen. They know where they can go, where they want to go to on a rate, and they can know how cheap they can get, and their compensation is going to be tied to how high they can get it, right? So, right. I mean, that's just one example. Um, but my goal would be to be working with you for the life of your mortgage, right? And that's what a good broker's trying to do as well, right? Because we can do anything from purchases, renewals, refinances, versus just one specific mortgage transaction. So I would say the thing to know is the broker works for the client.
I've never heard it actually summed up so well, that, yeah, you represent them. You have a legal duty to them to do the
Yeah.
best for them. The bank has a duty to do what's best for the shareholder.
Yeah.
And it's a completely upside. I mean, even just thinking about that out loud, it seems completely upside down. People got a big pile of, or hopefully they have a big pile of money sitting over at this place where, yeah, they're responsible to the shareholder, not the client necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I often tell clients, like, especially if I have a working relationship with the bank, like, talk to them, ask them these questions, see if they can answer them. If they can't, you give me a call back. Because quite often I can explain the products the bank has better than their staff. Not because the staff might be doing two different things, right? I'll get your student loan, your credit cards, RSPs. They might have to focus or train in one specific area, which is all I do.
Yeah. Tyler, this was phenomenal. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this. How do people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Sure. I mean, that last name was a bit of a mouthful, so we'll make sure it's in the video. Just yes, and yeah, I just by you Google Tyler Trumper mortgage broker, I'll pop up on a Google search. My website is just my full name, tylertrumper.com. That's how you get me.
Hey, thanks for being on the Best Area.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, man.